Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November 16th, 2020 regular meeting of the Village Council of Yellow Springs. And Judy, if you could do the roll call, please.
Yes, Hausch.
I'm here.
McQueen. Here. Stokes.
Here.
Krieger.
Present.
Curlis.
Here.
Also present are Village Manager Josue Salmarone, Parcels, Village Solicitor, Police Chief Carlson, Planning and Zoning Administrator Denise Swinger, Finance Director Matt Dillon, Sergeant Naomi Watson, and Public Works Director Johnny Byrne.
All right, thank you, Judy. And I want to kick off with a couple things under announcements, and I'm sure there's a couple more as well. First of all, I want to continue to thank our village team as well as our frontline workers for hanging in there. And I know this is a rough period, and we're going to talk a little bit today about how we can continue to make sure everyone stays safe. The other thing is I wanted to recognize a significant loss to our community, and that is the passing of Robert Devine. I just wanted to mention that I think many of you know that after graduating from Antioch College, he spent a significant amount of time continuing the message around community and around film studies, was the president of Antioch College for five plus years, and really had a significant impact on our community. And, I thought a lot about, our current community access station manager, Sean Devine, and how he's been carrying on what his father really was a forerunner in, understanding how important public access is. I also loved finding this quotation. It really resonates with me. That he said, "We bake community fresh and each and every day. Some days it rises perfectly and is very nutritious, and other days it's flat and tasteless, but each day is something new." And I can't think of better words that, just sort of match, how we feel on a daily basis. So I want to, on the behalf of the village, send our condolences to Sean and his family, and we're sorry for your loss and thinking about you. I wanted to also mention that I was so honored to speak last Saturday at the YS Speaking Up for Justice rally, which I believe ends 25 weeks, we decided, for what has been an amazing impact on the village and on the community. And the things that have happened have been transformative. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to it on the agenda. Awesome job to everyone related to the temporary power outage. I was so impressed with the coordination and the communication, and also just recognizing being sensitive to our vulnerable folks in the village. Well executed. This is the model for how we do these things moving forward. And the last thing I want to say is thank you to our community for your overwhelming support for the operating levy. It's a very important part of how we make sure that quality of life in the village is maintained, and that we provide all the services that we value. And we will continue to be responsible about the budget, which is something that we'll be talking about for the next 3 meetings. So Josue, I know you had some announcements as well.
Yes, thank you, Brian, and thank you for recognizing the effort of the team. I think we had the best power crew around this weekend, or this week was particularly stressful because we had that big, massive planned power outage, and then we have severe winds come through and it knocked power out to 45,000 customers in Ohio, in our area. And we feel fortunate we have such a great team that while we dealt with a lot of down trees and down branches, we were able to get everyone up and running with just a short few hours. So I'm very grateful to be working with such a committed and excellent team. And that includes our peace officers as well, because they're the first line. They're the first ones going out to check the power lines and check the general safety and make sure that folks aren't getting too close to power lines, and they're the first advisory to the power team. They let folks know where the down trees are. So I appreciate your recognition, council's recognition, and our community's recognition of the hard work that we all put into this. I've got a couple of announcements on the WINE's executive orders. They now require hand sanitizer stations at every business. And as you know, one of the commitments we made early on as a COVID response was to provide hand sanitizer stations in the downtown area, and then made hand sanitizer solution available to the businesses. We will continue in that commitment, particularly now that every business is required to have a hand sanitizer solution inside the business. So if any business need assistance with that, we will continue to make the product available, so they could please reach out to us and pick up hand sanitizer solution from our utility window. The second one is, and I think we'll get in greater detail here, is that we're honored and excited to announce the upcoming annual flour and sugar distribution. So this year, the distribution itself will take place from Monday, November 23rd, and it should be completed by Wednesday, November 25th. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other announcements? Okay, if not, let's move to our consent agenda. And we have 2 minute items, and I would love to get a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Judy, if you could call the roll, please.
Krieger,
Yes.
Curlis,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
Ausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is a review of the agenda. Anything, well, we already have one thing that we'll be adding, which is a in-depth discussion about our sort of upping our game related to the village COVID-19 response. So we'll add that to, I guess, legislation. Do we have anything else? Okay. If not, then Mary Ann, if you could walk us through the petitions and communications, please.
Yes. We had several communications regarding the COVID virus. 2 from the Greene County Health Department, one about how to be safe during the holidays. And I think it was a very good statement. Hopefully it's accessible to our community on our website or some way, because I think it was very important. Brian, you referenced something from legal, excuse me, legal something, press something about what constitutes basically committing a crime by furthering contagion from one person to another. And then there was the Greene County COVID count itself. Elise Burns submitted the information for the last month Mayor's Court. And Kevin Stokes had a communication regarding the Ober development south of town, potential development, and some concerns that people in that neighborhood had about the development, specifically about traffic. And that, oh, and then something that came in today, I guess, from Maria Booth regarding her concern about people not being masked downtown, in particular vendors on the sidewalk. And we will be dealing with that during the meeting.
All right, thank you, Mary Ann. So let's go ahead and move into legislation. And we first up have the second reading of ordinance 2020-30. And Judy, we can read that in by title only.
All right, this is repealing section 1224.01 application fee of the codified ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, and enacting new section 1224.01 application fee.
All right, can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
All right. So this is the second reading, so I'm going to open the public hearing. And Denise, anything you want to highlight before we see if there are any questions or comments?
No, it's just allowing staff a little bit more time for proper notification. That's it.
All right, thanks. Any questions or comments from council or citizens? All right, if not, I'm going to close the public hearing. And Judy, if you could call the roll, please.
Yes, McQueen,
Yes.
Curlis,
Yes.
Krieger,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes. All right.
Thank you.
Next up is ordinance 2020-31. And again, we can do that by title only.
All right, this is repealing section 1248.03 spatial requirements of the codified ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, and enacting new section 1248.03 spatial requirements.
All right, can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
move.
All right. Okay, we got plenty of motions, and I'll again open the public hearing. And Denise, anything you want to highlight here?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty easy.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just remind folks, if you weren't tuning in to our last meeting, these ordinances or revisions are cleaning up some housekeeping things, which was outlined in the report that was in the packet last time. So I think I've opened the public hearing. Any questions or comments from council or citizens? All right, then let's close the public hearing. And Judy, if you could call the roll.
Yes, Curlis,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
Krieger,
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, 2020-32. Again, we'll do that by title only, please.
All right, this is repealing section 1262.08 specific requirements of the codified ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, and enacting new section 1262.08 specific requirements.
All right, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Let's open the public hearing. And Denise, anything to highlight here?
This one just had requiring that wastewater now that's going into the sanitary sewer system be filtered before it's discharged. That's something different. There's been problems for Public Works downtown, and they requested that change. And then we're adding a two-step process for pocket neighborhood developments, just because it's too much to try to do in one meeting. And we're asking for a lot of information up front. So it gives the Planning Commission a chance to work through it with the developer and then come back for the final public hearing.
Okay, thanks. And just in case I didn't open the public hearing, it's open now. And are there any questions or comment? Okay, if not, we'll close the public hearing. And Judy, please call the roll.
Yes, Krieger,
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
Curlis,
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, next up, ordinance 2020-33, and we can do that again by title only.
All right, this is repealing section 1272.01 zoning permit required of the codified ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, and enacting new section 1272.0 zoning permit required.
All right, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, thank you. Opening the public hearing. Denise, anything?
This, again, is just some simple things added in regarding electric lines. We wanted to make it clear on paving that it was an existing impervious surface area, that they weren't taking something that was pervious and now making it impervious. That would require a permit.
Okay. Any questions or comments from council or citizens?
Yes. So I have a comment and question on the first section, zoning permit required, where there was number F1 regarding accessory structures.
Mhm.
So my first is a comment, because this is something I've disagreed with in the past, so I'm going to state it again. What it says is that you can't have an accessory structure in your front yard. Well, actually, it says that is less than 144 square feet. It shall not be erected in any front yard. So I just want to state that I am opposed to that and have talked about, back when we were doing the zoning regulations, which means like for some, sometimes people like to have a gazebo in their front, and some houses are set way back. So the ability not to have an accessory structure in your front yard, I think, is actually ridiculous. And at the time when this was discussed, the talk was, well, a burglar could be hiding behind it or something. So that makes no sense to me. So my question is, some lots are wide. So can an accessory structure of this type be on a side yard, or is it only behind the house?
It can be on the side.
Okay, because it's not, I don't think it's,
I know it's not clear, but it can be.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are my comments.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? So Marianne, I mean, I guess, is that something that you're suggesting that Planning Commission?
Well, yeah, I mean, when we did the zoning, what was it, 2013 rewrite?
Mm-hmm.
My opinion had no traction then. I don't know if it would make any difference now. Laura?
I guess if somebody really, really had that kind of a lot, they could apply for a variance, and make the argument and have neighbors weigh in. So I think in general, so many of our lots, especially with density, are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I would probably, I'm not really in favor of that. And if somebody had that much land, they can ask for a variance.
Denise, would you see that as an option?
I would have to weigh in with Brianne on this one because my understanding of variances, I don't know if it can, I guess it would be location instead of a use. So I guess I could make an argument for it. That's a Brianne question.
Yeah, if you're looking for a variance saying it can't be in the front yard and the setback is a certain, then yeah, it would be considered a variance.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. So Megan Bachman from the Yellow Springs News asked if a chicken coop counts as an accessory structure.
It does. It also, again, it's an accessory structure if it's accessory to the primary dwelling. So any structure at all like that, a shed or a chicken coop would be. Now, if it's under 144 square feet, we don't require a permit, but we do ask that you keep it 5 feet from the side, 10 feet from the rear.
Okay. Thanks, Denise. Anything else? All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. And Judy, if you could call the roll, please.
Yes, Curlis.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Thank you, Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, ordinance 2020-34. Again, we'll do that by title only.
All right, this is repealing Appendix A fee schedule of the codified ordinances, Part 12, Title 4 zoning of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, and enacting new appendix fee schedule.
All right, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right. And we'll open the public hearing again. Denise, anything you'd like to comment on?
No, we're just kind of clarifying it. We already have a demolition permit, but it's been under a change of use and we're just changing the title and giving it a fee.
Okay, great. Okay, questions or comments from council or citizens? All right, then let's close the public hearing. And Judy, if you'd call the roll, please.
Yes, McQueen.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
Curlis,
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, and our last housekeeping item is ordinance 2020-35, and we'll do that by title only as well.
All right, this is amending section 1242.06, uses not listed of the codified ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio.
All right, can I get a motion?
So moved. Second.
Second.
All right, we're going to open public hearing. Denise, anything on this one?
Yes. So what you have in your packet is not the wordsmithing that was done as a result of, Brian, you asked some questions about that. Brianne did change that language, and I just want to read what the change is. And it basically says, as presumption of prohibition of uses has historically been used for exclusionary purposes, the zoning administrator shall review any application for a use that is not listed either by right or by conditional approval in a zoning district, determine whether such use is similar to a permitted or conditional land use listed in the district, and if so, refer the application to the Planning Commission for conditional use approval, and if not, deny the application.
All right, that sounds like clean language to me. All right, thank you. Anything else, Denise? I'm sorry, Laura, go ahead.
Maybe then I need to remove, since we just heard the actual language, I guess I'm removing withdraw my prior motion and move that language she just read be the motion. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes. So Brianne, is that good enough for?
Yes,
Okay. And so do we need a second on that then?
I believe so, yes.
Second.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Great. So I'll open the public hearing again. And any questions or comments? Okay. If not, we'll close the public hearing. And Judy, if you could call the roll, please.
Yes, Krieger,
Yes.
Curlis,
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thanks to Planning Commission and to Denise Swinger for continuing to make sure that we refine our code. All right, so we're going to move into ordinance 2020-36. We'll do this by title only, and then Brianne can explain.
All right. This is permitting the continuation of remote meetings and remote public hearings for all municipal bodies by amending Chapter 1220 of the Yellow Springs Code of Ordinances.
Okay. Can I get a motion?
So move.
Second.
So this is an emergency reading. So we will open a public hearing, and Brianne, why don't you take over and talk about why we have this ordinance today?
Sure. Just to clarify, it's actually Chapter 220. And the reason that we're bringing this ordinance as an emergency is because the legislature in House Bill 197, because of the pandemic, temporarily lifted and redefined what it means to be counted as present in person for all public bodies in the state of Ohio. However, it said that it was going to expire December 1st or when the governor's order is lifted. Well, the governor's order hasn't been lifted, but December 1st is fast approaching. So under our home rule powers, we're looking at doing this as an emergency. Anytime there is a state, local, or national federal emergency that prohibits gatherings of restricting the size of the gatherings so that the Village of Yellow Springs and its municipal bodies, as it's already defined in our ordinances, can continue to meet remotely in person when warranted by the public health situation.
Okay, thank you, Brianne. So do we have any questions or comments from council or citizens?
I appreciated the memorandum that you submitted, Brianne, with some additional information about the state and the village. And also, I guess it was you that had the commuter tax memo as well? I'm not sure, but
Yes.
that was helpful.
That's
That
the
was
main
helpful.
reason that I'm not confident that the legislature is actually going to take action on this before December 1st. is because there is a documented effort that it's going to be log rolled into another pandemic related piece of legislation they're trying to pass.
Yeah, that was a very interesting article. I see that Megan Bachman has her hand raised. Megan, go ahead and unmic.
Thanks, Brian. Just a quick question. I saw that Brianne referenced some numbers that Josue put together about the participation in meetings. I was wondering if those could be shared. Thank you.
I think I'll let him answer that.
Yes, we can share the reports on the reports that we gathered on access to Zoom and the access to the various channels that we have, that at least that we can track. We cannot track channel 5. I don't think we've made it up there to the standards to be counted in the Nielsen ratings, but all other data we can share.
We're getting close though. Lisa Krieger.
Yeah, thank you. I would just like to say that I think this is the right thing to do. And I say that with a very, very strong wish that we could be together in person. I gain a lot more energy from the synergy of us being together in person along with citizens from our community. And I regret that our pandemic continues to rage at such a rate that it's just not possible. So I appreciate this proactive step. I think the governor has made it very clear that we are not heading in the right direction here in the state with our infection rates. And so I just want to express my gratitude to the members of the community who remain steadfast with us and participate with us virtually, and know that I just can't tell you how much I look forward to the day that we're back in person again. Thank you.
Thanks for those comments, Lisa. Any other questions or comments?
Just here to Lisa.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. And again, thank you, Brianne. I think you've been working quadruple time since you came on board, and we appreciate your proactiveness and your quick response on these things. All right, so we're going to close the public hearing, and Judy, if you could call the roll, please.
Yes. Stokes.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we are into our resolutions, and the first resolution is 2020-46. Judy, let's go ahead and read that one in full, please.
All right. This is authorizing and directing the village manager to issue a letter of intent and negotiate and execute a contract for purchase of a portion of real property owned by the Board of Education of Yellow Springs Exempted Village Schools for the Agraria Trail.
All right. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Did you want it in?
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yep, thank you.
Are you sure? It's really okay. Whereas Council for the Village of Yellow Springs by Resolution 2019-01 adopted January 7, 2019, officially supported Community Service, Inc. in its efforts to obtain state funding to connect the Agraria Center for Regenerative Practice, Agraria, to the Village of Yellow Springs via a public shared use trail, the Agraria Trail, as part of a comprehensive effort to improve cyclist and pedestrian safety, also incorporated in the village's active transportation plan. And whereas council has been advised by Agraria that the funding it received for trail development excludes the purchase of real property for a portion of the trail from the Board of Education of the Yellow Springs Exempted Village School at the site of McKinney Middle School, consisting of approximately 3 acres located along the southern lot line of parcel number, long number. And whereas Village Council has determined it is in the best interests of the village to offer to assist Agraria in the purchase of the school portion of the property with available funds from the village's open space program, as established by Chapter 1222 of the Village Codified Ordinances. Now, therefore, Council for the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, hereby resolves that. Section 1, Council authorizes the village manager to issue a letter of intent to the school offering to purchase the real estate for a purchase price of up to $60,000, as such funds are currently appropriated for open space acquisition. Section 2, upon the school's acceptance of such offer by the village, council authorizes the village manager to negotiate further with the school and to negotiate and enter into a memorandum of understanding with Agraria for leasing of the property for trail development, subject to review by the village solicitor and final approval of village council by ordinance pursuant to section 1222.02 of the village codified ordinances.
Thank you, Judy. Can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
And I'm recusing myself, Judy.
Okay. All right, Josue.
Thank you, Brian. This is a follow-up to a previous presentation that council received from Susan Jennings and the Agraria team on the grant application that they were successful in receiving. And as noted in this resolution, that while they were successful in the grant specifically prohibits using funds to acquire the property. So this is a great opportunity for the village to tap in and continue to build out its trail paths and its recreational spaces, particularly around the building connective community and building out our trail space that we already have infrastructure already in that South College corridor, and this would enhance that that bike path. So this is a follow-up to that presentation. We need to work through some administrative, I don't want to say barriers, but milestones, I should say. And this is one of them. After this, we'll have the letter of intent and then an MOU that will have to be approved by council. This resolution allow us to work on a letter of intent. There are a few things that we've done behind the scenes. For example, Johnny and myself have walked the premise and looked at the conditions of the space. There's stormwater system that's part of that would be adjacent and part of the trail. And the team has reviewed what those conditions are and what's the long-term commitment that would be required there. So part of the conversation and the letter of intent will be to discuss those elements with the schools. At the moment, I don't think that any of that is necessarily a barrier to this transaction.
All right, thank you, Josue. And part of the reason I wanted to read that in is because I think this is such a important project for the village. And we all know how amazing Agraria is, and being able to connect that space directly into the village, into the schools is really exciting. And it really highlights how great it is that we have a green space fund that can support this. The other thing I want to remind everyone is that part of our agreement is that Agraria will be over 15 years leasing that property. And so this is a shared initiative, and they will end up over that period of time matching 30,000 with the 30,000 that the village will ultimately spend out of the Green Space Fund. Are there any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I would like to comment. If people remember several years ago when the Arnovitz property went up for sale, and Tecumseh Land Trust was instrumental in helping to acquire that property, part of which Community Solutions purchased and then created Agraria. I have some bug in my house. So that is part of the Jacoby Greenbelt, which is not only important as a small watershed with some wetlands and a stream, but also as the definitive boundary for the village. And the fact that we can have a path that's being collaboratively done with Agraria, the schools, the village, and I think Rick Donahoe, I believe, donated a portion of that, and that we can get to Agraria without having to drive a car, either walking, biking, whatever. It is just really very cool and important, I think.
Yeah, very much in line with our village values around inclusion and accessibility. So yeah, it's awesome. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, Brian, I do recall that that Agraria was going to, or is going to, lease, the property in question, over the 15-year period. And I noticed we're saying up to $60,000 for the purchase price. I mean, is that a floating figure such that we did not specifically say, that the lease would total, exactly half of that at 30,000, or is there just too many moving parts still?
I think we've got a firm price on the valuation of the land, so that is 60,000. So that part is firm.
I think there are other elements in the transaction that are still being talked about. I received a request from the team that their survey and legal fees that are part of their transaction cost, and that's something that I've started the conversation with them. I've had the conversation with Brian. I raised the issue, and that's something that we need to discuss at some point, unless the schools will absorb the survey costs and the legal fees costs of the transaction.
Okay.
Or they could be included in this total up to $60,000 price.
Right. Okay, good. Thank you much.
Did I miss anything there, Brian?
I think that was clear. Anything else? All right, then Judy, let's call the roll, please.
All right, Krieger,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes. Okay, so next up we have a really exciting resolution. Actually, there's a lot of things that are really coming together these days, and that's Resolution 2020-47. And Judy, I'd appreciate if you read that one in full as well.
Sure. This is committing to provision of municipal broadband as a means of facilitating access for businesses, residents, and visitors in the Village of Yellow Springs. Whereas the Village of Yellow Springs is able to leverage ownership of its electrical distribution system, coupled with an existing data center in town, and is poised to build out its fiber network when appropriate financial and technical solutions are identified. And whereas the Village of Yellow Springs as a municipal entity owns and operates telecommunications facilities within the village that provide broadband internet access for public purposes and public facilities. And whereas the Village of Yellow Springs recognizes the importance of positioning gigabit level internet to ensure equity, inclusion, and access, and attract new businesses and create jobs, improve healthcare and education, and connect residents to new opportunities. And whereas the Village of Yellow Springs values net neutrality as essential to the American economy and our very way of life, and open and affordable internet launches new ideas, ignites new political movements, and brings communities closer together. As President Obama highlighted, it has been one of the most significant democratizing influences the world has ever known. And whereas the Village of Yellow Springs has partnered with residents, political subdivisions, and organizations such as SpringsNet, Mavecca, YS Schools, YS Community Foundation, and Greene County to improve the infrastructure needed to provide third-party access to broadband services, including fiber for the downtown business district. And whereas the Village of Yellow Springs intends to eventually extend access to the entire community as a public municipal utility with wireless active Ethernet, shared gigabit, and other services for wholesale and retail provision to commercial and residential customers as a subset of its electrical utility operated by the Village of Yellow Springs Public Works, subject to reasonable restrictions. And whereas the Village of Yellow Springs has installed and implemented a fixed wireless network initiative with various stakeholders, schools, businesses, government, that provides high-speed free Wi-Fi to downtown Yellow Springs, providing equitable access to the internet, promoting economic development, and enhancing quality of life. This project creates a platform and the backbone for more extensive municipal fiber infrastructure to generate revenues for the village by providing internet as a utility and to reduce expenses via operational efficiencies. Now, therefore, Council for the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, hereby resolves that Section 1. The Village of Yellow Springs commits to expand its delivery of broadband internet access to the public by facilitating access to businesses, residents, and visitors in the village to promote the public health, safety, and welfare of the Village of Yellow Springs.
Can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
Second.
All right. Yeah, I want a second too. Because this is, I want to say a few words and then I'll turn it over to Josue, and I expect Kevin will want to say something as well. So this was an initiative that came up pretty much when Marianne McQueen and I joined council. In 2014, some of you may remember that SpringsNet formed. We put together a fiber forum. We joined Next Century Cities with a commitment to equity and accessibility and net neutrality. And I actually spoke at a conference, the Broadband Communities Conference. They invited me, and actually the village didn't have to pay anything. They covered the costs, and talked about our nascent efforts to get broadband, particularly municipal broadband, off the ground. And I will tell you that the folks in Minnesota, where the conference was, highlighted that it took them about 10 years. So I'm happy to say that we're ahead of the curve. We're at 6 years now, and I know there's been a lot of passion and energy and excitement to get this going, and it's nice to see it all coming together. I also want to compliment Josue not only on really being the champion for this and working with all the various organizations, but also doing a great job of writing this resolution and memorializing this important effort. The last thing I'm going to say is that I'm getting emails every day that now is the time to invest in municipal broadband. And I think I don't have to explain to anybody why that's the case. So with that, Josue, I'll let you take it over.
Excellent. Thank you, Brian. I really appreciate your kind words. I think the community made it so easy to move this along. Great minds of the village, the leadership, the community have already talked about this, and there's a lot of enthusiasm. So facing a pandemic and seeing the need just for internet connectivity for everything that we do, not just the kids that need to go to school, but the numerous families that have to take care of their kids at home and work from home and have to juggle phone calls and all that. Folks who've been laid off and who are struggling to find work in this new pandemic where you can't go knock on doors. You have to resort to going online and finding whether it's a gig or your next job, and the healthcare needs when folks couldn't physically go into a hospital setting. They're left with being able to connect to their doctors via phone and their computer and whatnot. This is such an essential, such a critical time for us to do this. And having built that, I have so much enthusiasm already in the community, makes it easy for us to move forward. And we are here. We're excited that fiber's laid down and all of downtown. Thor and his team has done a great job in laying the fiber. Tomorrow we're having the brains or the switch of all of that fiber being installed here in the building. That switch is going to reside right here in the building. So all that traffic, it's coming right through here and then connecting through the backbone that Thor and Enveca has built. And I feel that that's such a unique position to be in, that we have such a market key player, powerhouse right down the street from us who is making this happen for us, who we're able to buy bandwidth in bulk from, we're able to buy data from. And so I think the stars have aligned on this, and I'm excited to be part of it and create value and add value for residents, because that's ultimately what we're doing this for, is our resident, our community, to build resilience, to create access to the larger marketplace. Those are educational, labor markets, and economic markets, but also as a tool to build equity. Because in a time when you have so much disparities in income and access, we are trying to level the playing field by providing fast internet that's equitable, affordable, and accessible. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Josue. And, I want to add to that, as highlighted in the resolution, I strongly believe this is going to be a critical economic driver for the village and an important investment to help us moving forward. Kevin, did you want? Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Brian, and I have a quick PowerPoint presentation, and I can wait until after Kevin's gone.
Well, I'm so excited about the PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to be quick. Josue, Josue, you know, I wrote you an email in response to this effort, congratulating you for your vision and your leadership. And as a IT professional, obviously, you know, I'm very, very excited about this. You know, one thing that's odd, if you will, about this pandemic is that I feel like it has accelerated us as a nation, as a world, to this point where we're doing this, what we're doing right now, just wasn't as regular as it is now just a year ago. And so the need for having, you know, the high-speed internet and the broadband and fiber to the home is such a big deal. You know, Brian, you said that we're, you know, ahead of the curve, getting to this point after 6 years. What the entire community needs to understand, and I'm not tooting anybody's horn necessarily, but a lot of those cities that got municipal broadband in place had to first build that data center. And we have a data center, and that is such a big plus that we didn't have to build ourselves. But to have that advantage, you know, as a business partner, you know, in my role, responsible for facilities and technology at the college, you know, I partner also with Mavecca. They are our internet service provider, my managed service provider, if you will. So I just want to highlight how big this is. I feel like I probably live almost as far away from the Bryan Center as you can live and still be in the village. So I don't know if I'm be on the tail end of the progression, but if you want to test it out and see how it works at long distance, I'm your guy. But I do just want to say on a serious note, thank you, Josue, again, for your leadership, for your guidance, for the team that you've put together. I know we'll have a meeting here soon to flesh things out. But this is exactly what we need, and it's a great benefit to the community as you've shared earlier. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right, Josue, let's see that PowerPoint, and then we'll
All right.
any other questions or comments after that.
All right, and I think you've seen most of the content, but we've done an effort to put some the content together. All right, so you know that internet infrastructure in town is outdated, underpowered, and oversubscribed, which means slow and inconsistent for many. Under circumstances, internet connection is a must-have, but during this pandemic, it is just crucial for school learning, healthcare, finding a job, and economic recovery. What is the solution that we're building? We're building a better internet infrastructure in Yellow Springs by building a fiber infrastructure, provide public Wi-Fi, which stabilizes community and spurs economic development, builds equity, and closes the digital divide. It has been proven that communities with broadband and fiber have greater economic activity, higher home values, attract businesses, support advanced healthcare, strengthens housing markets, and have better connected schools and libraries. What's our product? This is what we've built out so far. We've got a fiber backbone that extends municipal fiber to the downtown area. We've installed a fixed wireless access points. These are 12 industrial grade access points with speeds up to 1.3 gigabytes per second, covering over 20 acres of downtown. The service includes free public Wi-Fi access. We're committed to providing free internet access with speeds of up to 100 megabytes to thousands of residents and visitors. This is an innovative, and innovation leads to economic and social resiliency. Meets the needs of today with a plan for the future to attract jobs and businesses, deliver telehealth, education, and connect to the larger marketplace. That's my quick pitch. Now, I want to talk a bit about net neutrality, because one of the values that we included in the resolution is talking about net neutrality, and that means keeping an open and free internet where traffic isn't being restricted by who can afford to pay for what. That's on both ends. That's on the consumer. A consumer will have equal speeds to whatever content that they choose to have access to, and anyone who delivers content on our broadband infrastructure, it'll be equal and fair access. So it's not contingent about whether a private media provider pays more money to have access to people in their market. The other piece to net neutrality is what we do with the data. We are committed to protecting our consumer data. We're not going to be like an ISP, many other ISPs that mine consumer data and consumer behavior, and they sell data and they sell that behavior data to marketers or product developers. That's the added benefit that our community gets by going through a community-owned infrastructure. That the data is managed by us, and we're not going to sell the data. What that also means is that we don't restrict the data. So anyone can do what they want with the internet. It's open internet. So thank you, Brian.
Yeah, Josue, I just want to echo that one thing about the protection of data. I mean, I don't know that we need a major marketing effort, because I think it's already been proven, at least at one point, that we have a pretty high acceptance rate for municipal broadband. But I think that's a major marketing point, the fact that we are protecting actively, if you will, protecting data, given the world in which we live and how prevalent it is for folks to take data, sell data, and misuse data. I think that's again a major point in the marketing approach.
Okay, I see a couple hands up. Megan.
Thanks, Brian. I'm curious, a few years ago when this first came up, I know there was some talk that some of the big telecoms were worried about it. They were suing communities. Can somebody share kind of an update on that situation? Is this all, perfectly legal and without any opposition at this point?
I think I can answer part of your question. I don't know what happened 6 years ago and what was the topics of discussion or the challenges, but I know what I've looked at now in terms of communities building out its own broadband. Yes, it's legal. We can do it. So that's something that we can do. And, is there obstruction or objection from telecoms? Absolutely. For them, they have a value in each community. They know what that life cycle is, and they know how much money they can get per customer and for how long. So yes, there is an opposition. This is going to challenge a lot of their business model. I think there's something you didn't ask is, can we restrict them from our broadbands or our fiber? And no, we cannot keep them off. I imagine that we're going to get to a point where telecom reaches out to us and demand for access, and we'll have to work out some sort of arrangement where they pay for access to the fiber to sell their services.
Yeah, and I will say that Comcast sued Chattanooga and lost back in 2015, and that was kind of, sorry about my cat. She wants to weigh in on the topic as well. But that was kind of I don't want to say it opened the floodgates, but it made a lot more communities less reluctant to sign on to the idea of municipal broadband once Chattanooga had a success in court.
Thanks for that, Brianne. Sean, I see you have a hand up. Did you have a comment? Nope. Okay. All right. False alarm. Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right. If not, then Judy, if you could call the roll, please.
Yes, Stokes.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
With conviction. All right. We've got this is our penultimate resolution 2020-48. Judy, I'll go ahead and read this one in myself. All right. And this is approving the annual distribution of flour and sugar to village widows and widowers. Whereas,
there's more.
Yeah, I'm going to read it in. But I'll let you have first dibs on them.
All right.
Whereas Willingant, who was born into slavery in about 1815, did, through his own wit and will, purchase his own freedom as well as that of his wife and a friend, and did thereafter made his way to Yellow Springs, Ohio in the early 1860s, where he became a successful and respected member of the village. And whereas Mr. Gaunt as at his passing in 1894, left in his will a bequest that the poor worthy widows of Yellow Springs, regardless of their race, be given 25 pounds of flour during the Christmas season. This purchase to be made from the sale of crops grown on what is now Gaunt Park. And whereas residents of Yellow Springs to this day enjoy the benefits of Gaunt Park as a result of the generosity of William Gaunt, and whereas as a nod to the changing times, Mr. Gaunt's bequest has, over the years, been amended to offer 5 pounds of flour and 5 pounds of sugar to both widows and widowers, all of whom are considered worthy. And whereas as the holiday season approaches and we think of ways we can share our love and concern for all members of this community, it is fitting that we honor this memory of William Gaunt and his spirit of his gift in the manner he intended. Now, therefore, Council for the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio hereby resolves that Section 1, the village manager is hereby authorized and directed to procure the traditional supplies and distribute them as stipulated in the deed for Gaunt Park and as expanded by Council in 2012. Section 2, the expenditure of up to $3,000 from the Widows Fund 902, 1703, 54102 is hereby authorized as provided in the village's annual appropriations. Can I get a motion?
As the only widow on council, I think I so move.
A second?
Second.
All right. Josue, do you want to add anything again about the distribution or?
I think this is such a lovely story, and I love that we're continuing to honor this, and we're doing it under my tenure, and we will continue doing the work that William Gaunt set out for us to do.
All right, thank you.
I do have some other information that I was going to add in my manager's report about.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
This maybe seems like, go ahead.
Well, I just encourage people, as I've done the last several years, to pay it forward if it's a gift that you don't need. And I know there's several people who are eligible for this who do pay it forward, and I just want to recognize them and thank them to do that. So there's the food pantry that the Methodist Church runs. That's a good place. You can drop the flour and sugar off at the Josue, is that bin still in the Bryan Center entrance?
Yes, and what we also do, Laura, and I think you noted this in your when we call folks to inform them that they're on the list. Thank you for bringing that up, Laura. We welcome individuals or participants in this program to let us know that they want to donate it, and we can make that donation. And we also take donations for this program. We take donations in product and also contributions. And we receive contributions for this program. And in fact, this year we've had an increase in the attention on the product. We've had PBS, the Cincy Stories, they'll be tagging along for our distribution this year. They heard about us through a Dave Chappelle episode that they saw online. And they love the story so much that they wanted to make it an episode. So we're going to have a visit from PBS, make the story. This is going to be an opportunity for the William Gaunt team to talk about their work and their project and also raise awareness about that. We've had another media team, local Ohio team that's also wants to make their own episode and story around this. So it's kind of good attention, and we welcome a participant in this program that, I understand from past stories that folks feel that they don't need it and so they reject it. But to what Laura's point is, you can pay it forward. You can ask to have it donated to one of the food pantries, and we welcome hearing that.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Josue. Lisa?
Yeah, I just have a question, and I apologize because I know I may be introducing administrative complexity, but I do wonder, with more and more people experiencing gluten intolerance, if other forms of flour like coconut flour or rice flour, something other than wheat flour, is an option for people if they are gluten intolerant.
I think that's an excellent point, Lisa. I am a favorite of the corn flour because that's how you make tortillas, right? Like there folks who don't make bread, they make tortillas. So yeah, I think that there's an opportunity there for us to explore.
Anything else? Okay, Judy, if we could call the roll, please.
Indeed, Curlis.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So before we introduce the last piece of legislation, I want to give a little bit of background, and I'm also going to share. There it is. Some work that was done in response to, I believe by now, all of us should be familiar with the updated orders from the governor and the health department, which was announced on Wednesday of last week. We called a meeting, or I called a meeting on the following day on Thursday that included our village manager, our chief and sergeant, as well as Alex Scott from the chamber, and also a representative, the deputy commissioner from Greene County Public Health. Chief Altman was in that call, as well as Judy and Philip, who's been handling our communications. And one of the main things that we talked about is what I'm sharing on our screen, and we will certainly make this document available. We did not have time to get into the packet. Is looking at how we can sort of respond to both keeping our community safe, but also helping support our businesses so that we can avoid another shutdown, and in general, make sure that we are prepared to deliver on the new requirements. And so related to that, and it's become very clear, and we expected this anyway, the new Bureau of Workers' Comp task force is going to be overwhelmed, as have the public health organizations around the different counties. So I'm glad that the order recognizes that our local police departments can help with, again, making sure that we're safe. So a couple things that are outlined in these procedures, and I'll let others highlight anything that they want to pull out, is with both individuals and businesses and vendors being very clear what the steps are. And I think everyone knows that we have resolutions, we have ordinances, there are local, county, and state laws at this point. And I will just highlight that I was very appreciative that our peace team, our peace officers were interested in coming to the table and collaborating and thinking about everything that they can do to keep our community safe. And I want to really thank all of you, because I can definitely empathize how difficult it is to enforce something like this. And it's definitely a whole new game. And I can empathize because I was downtown for 5 weekends and you know, felt the anger and rage and whatnot for people that did not want to follow these mandates. So having said that, in terms of making sure that visitors to our community are not endangering our citizens, we've already been doing regular patrols downtown. Our officers have had masks, but we are going to be more strict about issuing citations. And we, have made it so that those are civil citations that go to our mayor's court. I know that Mayor Pam Kanine is taking this seriously as well. And again, we want to emphasize that while there is a state hotline, you can continue to call 767-7206 and report these violations. And I will say as a side note, although we could not put them in the packet, Maria Booth also shared photos. And in my mind, that photo evidence is helpful in confirming that somebody who's not wearing a mask that might put it on if they see an officer coming up, that we can still issue those warnings and citations. In terms of businesses, one of the things that happened today is the chamber created a very specific signage, no mask, no service. And while, I was asked earlier today, is this a shift from being kind? I think Dr. Amy Atkin had a really great talk on Friday about the importance of kindness still in these times. But that being said, we're going to be very clear that you need to wear a mask. That's the law. That's it. So we have provided these signs to businesses that didn't have their own signage. If those signs are not posted, we will be following the first warning and then the second warning, which then means a 24-hour shutdown of that business. And again, the governor's orders are very clear that our local police department has that ability. We think we also have it in our current ordinances, but the state mandates make this all very clear. And these will also be enforced. And again, we want to work with our businesses and with our community members to keep everybody safe, to keep our local economy healthy, and so forth. So I'm going to stop there and see if, Josue, you have anything to add before we introduce this potential resolution.
Thank you, Brian. I want to address the seriousness of the times that we're facing. I know in my last weekly address to the community in the town hall, I talked about the 3 highest numbers reported happened in November. That of all the cases we've seen, it's we've had the 3 highest just in a week's period. And so the cases just keep increasing, hospitalization is increasing, and we need to step up our game. Not to say that we haven't been taking this serious, because I think our community has really done an amazing job at doing the compliance and just the marketing strategy and promoting our values and creating safer spaces. But this, with the protocol and what we talked about in terms of business closures, it's time that we do more. And we do more, and for some, it's going to may feel that it is an attack, or may feel that it's not the right focus, because the folks that we may be directly impacting by either shutting a business down or citing them or doing more than what we've done in the past, they may be seen as the ones not ending up in the hospital or whatnot. But that's precisely the point, that these are the main sources of spread. When we look at the research with restaurants, bars, gyms, churches, the social gatherings, these are the super spreading events. And we have to do more to look at those points of spread. And this is what we're looking to do with this initiative. So there's still more work that all of us can do, and that includes our local government and the law enforcement side.
Thank you, Josue. And I see that Chief Carlson and Sergeant Watson are in the meeting. Do either or both of you have any comments?
Can you hear me? It's Sergeant Watson.
Yes.
I just wanted to let you know that I think that Chief was going to talk about this. I don't know if he was able to get unmuted or not. However, we did walk through the businesses today, and every business that was open received signs. The majority of them were very thankful. A lot of them had a lot of questions. We did refer them to the governor's website, and I gave out the copies that I had available. But I told them to, if they had any questions, to get on there, read it first, and if they needed help understanding it, then they could give us a call and we would help them to the best of our ability.
Thanks, Naomi. Naomi kind of summed it up, folks. Today, we did experience a couple antagonizing moments. I think most folks are under the understanding, and it's clear which two proprietors in town are opposing this. And we will work closely with those two proprietors and the folks that frequent their establishments and try to keep everybody safe.
All right, thank you, Chief, and thank you, Sergeant Watson. I really appreciate the efforts in terms of educating, and we also have planned a one-pager to help with answering some of those questions that you will continue with that educational effort. I feel like before we bring in that resolution, I want to see if there are any other questions, comments, or concerns from council members around the protocols that are being suggested or any suggested changes or whatnot.
So this is Laura, and I really like the protocol, Brian. I think it makes great sense at this point. And as I understand the protocol, officers, this is on the individual level, officers will offer a mask and a warning if people are not wearing a mask. And of course, there are a very small, limited number of exceptions, and then they can advise them about distancing. However, if they see the person again not wearing it, they can give them a citation into mayor's court. And I think that's appropriate for this moment in our pandemic history. So I guess with that said, you know, it seems like with this change of protocol, I'm not sure that the resolution that I saw, and really, not sure if it should, yeah, it would be a resolution. The resolution I saw, I'm not sure if it's necessary. So that's just an initial comment. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Laura. Anything else from Kevin, Lisa, or Marianne? Okay. So, all right. So it sounds like, I mean, everything I've heard, and there's been some feedback. There's, you know, I think total support for the protocols. And you know, I appreciate our officers continuing to think about how to balance, you know, the need to be serious with the understanding that we're dealing with a variety of issues. I'm glad that Laura flagged the piece about if someone has an exception for a face covering, that they should still be distancing, and that is noted in the protocols. And the other thing I want to emphasize is that there's a little bit of confusion about, you know, the requirements for restaurants and bars and whatnot versus other retail establishments. But our protocol is the same for all of our downtown businesses, which is that you do need to post this signage and you do need to follow, you know, all the requiring of masks. Of course, restaurants and bars have been given somewhat different requirements because of the eating and drinking. But those also say when you're not eating and drinking, you have your mask on. So I do want just everyone to be clear that those different orders do not mean that those businesses aren't enforcing the signage and all the other things. Okay, so with that, I think we should go ahead and read the resolution in by title only. Josue, if you could share that on the screen as well, since this is also something that wasn't in the packet, that would be great. So Judy, if you could go ahead and read it in, please.
Yeah, this is outlining additional public health emergency protocols in the Village of Yellow Springs and declaring an emergency.
Okay, can I get a motion?
Move.
Second.
Okay, so Brianne, maybe we'll start with you, and you know, I think in your comments, if you want to address why this might be necessary in addition to the protocol.
Well, the biggest thing is we had the governor's orders, and as you said, Brian, you met Thursday, but the orders were issued Friday and Sunday. So as Chief Carlson said, there are a lot of questions from businesses and individuals about, well, does the order apply to me? How do I comply with it? So what we're looking at doing is the protocols that were drafted for local police response, as well as the fact that these orders give local law enforcement capability for the statewide orders. So we're not just looking at our local mask mandate, but we're also looking at the statewide mask mandate that went into effect on July 23rd, and then the subsequent orders on November 13th and November 15th, requiring the retail and business establishments to require facial coverings and physical distancing and signage, and also limiting mass gatherings of more than 10 people. So we're looking at, well, how do we impose those things practically? Well, we're enforcing ordinances that are already on the books. Our own mask ordinance, the ordinance to effectuate prevention of spread of contagion, which tracks the language of the state law almost exactly, except for the title. And then also the state prohibition on violation of state health department orders. So we're kind of outlining that this is what is expected of the public in terms of compliance, as well as the police in terms of enforcement. So if you're an individual, it's very likely you would be cited into mayor's court, unless you're in a repeat violation situation, or if you're a business that's in violation of the statewide order, in which case that's a second-degree misdemeanor. It's a much more serious offense. That would be something that would probably be going to municipal court. The other thing that we tried to clarify with this resolution is to encourage the physical distancing downtown. The current ordinance on the books restricts obstruction of the sidewalk. So if you're putting a card table up to sell something on the sidewalk, on the public sidewalk, you're encouraging congregation around your table where you're selling goods. That is inherently violative of the statewide order. And we're saying we're restricting sidewalks from being obstructed because we want to promote physical distancing in the village.
Okay, thank you, Brianne. And I guess, Josue, if you want to scroll down a little bit so we can see the second. Oh, yeah, that's good. Okay, so any questions or comments? And since it's a share screen, just go ahead and mic on if you have any.
Yeah, so this is Laura. I have a question about congregation violative of statewide order with sidewalk vendors. So we have two types of quote unquote sidewalk vendors. We have sidewalk vendors who are actually physically set up on private land, but the customers are on the public sidewalk in the right of way. Then you have one dude who is set up on the public sidewalk in the public right of way. So how do you distinguish those two situations?
Based on the pandemic public health protocol, I'd say you don't distinguish. If they're blocking the sidewalk, they're asked to move and pack up.
They're not blocking. So two of them are on private property. They're not blocking the sidewalk. It's their customers. So you ask the customers to move along.
And under the statewide health order, any business that's doing retail sales is responsible for enforcing this against their own customers. So that's the way the state has structured its most recent orders, is that retail establishments, whether they're on a sidewalk or in a brick and mortar store, are responsible for making people wear masks and engage in physical distancing.
Okay, but what if the two that are on private property do that? What I'm saying is, I think I would prefer that the one who's on public right of way, I don't have a problem with us saying, and I don't know if we need to pass a resolution that during this pandemic, retail vendors cannot be located on the public right of way. But people whose customers are in the right of way, if they're masking up and they're distancing, sometimes there's only one of them at the table at a time that they can do that. And by the way, we have a couple of other establishments that have seating in the public right of way. So are we getting rid of all the seating in the public? Now the weather might get rid of the seating in the public right of way. But these people are sitting in the public right of way, eating and drinking without masks, right? So that must be a danger. So this is a little more complicated, I think, than initially one would view it. So it seems to me like we have to get rid of all retail activity or eating and drinking in the public right of way. I mean, if we want to go that extreme, then let's do that. But when you tell people, like the vendors who are on private property, I'm not sure we can tell them to move as long as they're on private property. So as long as their customers are masked up and staying distant from one another, I'm not sure we can do anything about them. They're complying.
The question is, are they more than 6 feet apart?
Well, that's up to them, right? So if our police see that that's not happening, they can say, hey, you need to be 6 feet apart.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I guess I do. One thing I wanted to clarify. Josue, can you scroll down to section 3? So, Brianne, I wanted to understand what the 10-day waiting period is about.
That's under state law for any time that you have a nuisance violation that you're going for an injunction. There's typically, and some courts aren't doing this because of COVID, but whenever you're prosecuting a nuisance violation as an injunction, you're trying to get an injunction to close down the premises on more than an emergency basis.
Gotcha.
The trial is supposed to be held within a certain period of time. And if it's in an environmental division of a municipal court, which we don't have, it's usually 10 days. But they do expedite those preliminary injunctions for nuisance cases that are risks to public health.
Okay, so
that's where we got the 10 days from.
Gotcha. So this does
was under 3767
right
of the revised code.
Okay, but this does not change our ability to, on the second warning, do the 24-hour shutdown under the governor's.
No, the injunction would be for a longer period of than 24 hours. If we've got a repeat violator that we say, you know what, they've been such a problem that we need to shut them down for a period of longer than 24 hours, we would probably be needing to seek an injunction for whatever period of time we deem appropriate because they have not remedied a nuisance condition.
Okay, thank you. Lisa Krieger? You're on mute, Lisa.
Hi, I'd like to echo the concern that Curlis brought up about some of the establishments that have eating and drinking on the public sidewalks. It's just physically impossible to physically distance in that public right of way. Now, I also understand that there's this, viral load stuff. And if you're not close to someone for a period of time and you're just walking by, maybe the risk is less. But where I'm with this at this point is like, none of us want to be in the situation we're in. None of us want to do this. We're all like over it, just like everybody else. But the bottom line is that the dangers now is getting really, really bad. If it wasn't bad before, it's really, really bad. Like, we have to take it seriously. So I tend to think during this particular time, we're at a crucial tipping point now more than ever that we should think about whether we allow any vendor or eating or drinking outside tables on the public sidewalk.
Yep. I think it's an important point as well. Sergeant Watson, I saw your hand up.
Yes, I think this question is for Brianne. If we have a vendor, like Laura said, who is on private property, but their customers are in the public right of way and they are not complying or they're not having their customers comply, would that also fall back to whomever's property that is that they're on? Would they be all responsible?
Under the state order, not necessarily, but under our local ordinance, if someone is giving permission to a vendor to set up, then yes, they couldn't necessarily be prosecuted under our mask ordinance, but
Sure.
under some of our business code provisions.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I have another. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Laura.
Section 2, I'm still completely in favor of our mayor taking care of the enforcement, and I do not want people getting second-degree misdemeanors out of it. Because once you go to Xenia, there are all kinds of other collateral consequences that start happening. And it is really, look, I know it's serious, but I think Mayor Pam can get that message across. And if people FTA, they're going to get a warrant into, believe me, it's a big hassle just to go to mayor's court. So I think that's serious enough for this situation. Thank you.
Okay.
Laura, thanks for bringing that up. That's a good point, but I have two questions. First, Brianne, for establishments that have people outside of the establishment, where do you see this fitting in with regards to a 24-hour shutdown?
If they violate a 24-hour shutdown, that's a state order.
No, I mean, if the problem is people gathering out in front of a place that's village property, how does that affect the establishment?
It depends on if it's being done at the behest of the establishment, like, again, if they're eating or drinking and encouraged to congregate, or if they're doing it after an establishment's closed without the establishment's knowledge. And this is one of the things that the orders have set up, that there's supposed to be a designated compliance officer who's supposed to monitor these sorts of things. And that's supposed to be the local liaison for law enforcement. That's supposed to be in charge of making sure people don't congregate and that people do wear their masks.
Okay, thank you for that. And then second, just asking everyone to please understand the difficulties of this from the change that is expected of our police officers. Laura, I can't advise that if the situation becomes volatile, that we send that to mayor's court.
Why not?
I need to if it escalates into violence, it won't.
You're going to charge them with something else if that happens.
Yeah, it would be disorderly.
Right.
So depending on the degree, but I just want to make people aware of that too, that, you know, we have somewhat of uncharted territory here. And I need to make sure that, you know, the team understands and that you understand that it's not quite as easy as just on paper.
All right. Well, I think this discussion has raised some important issues. I am leaning, well, not just leaning. I feel like Lisa and what Laura said is very important, and so I think that for now, and I guess part of it is if we pass this resolution, we need to ask those businesses that have tables on the sidewalk to remove them, not use them. And I mean, we've talked about in the past accommodating that activity like they've done in Dayton and other places and carve out a parking spot or something. But I do also think the weather is going to take care of it. And anyway, but that's one thing that I feel like we need to be consistent. And it really started with our street musicians who were crowding people, even if they were technically off the sidewalk and not allowing for distancing. So I think we got to be serious. So I don't know if there's any other discussion, but I think we should probably vote on this resolution unless there is.
I have a question, Brian. Just in terms of the execution and compliance, if an establishment, feels like they can make an argument, about distancing or having a table in an alcove, yes, weather will probably take care of most of it, but weather is weather. I mean, it can change. Is there a point of contact that we want to have available for folks to ask pointed questions about their particular circumstances?
Yeah, I think what we want to do, depending on how we decide on this resolution, is those businesses, there should be a follow-up visit to explain what we potentially decide tonight. So I think the points of contact are Chief Carlson and Sergeant Watson.
All right, thanks.
Okay, yep. Anything else? Okay, so I believe we did our motion in second. So Judy, if you could call the roll, please.
Yes, Stokes,
Yes.
Curlis,
No.
McQueen,
Yes.
Krieger,
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. And again, thank you, everyone. Yep. I don't know what else to say, except maybe I'll just say this. If you really care about saving the village, you will follow the protocols and you will wear face coverings, you will distance, and you will sanitize. Okay, we're now on to citizen concerns. This is the point in our meeting where we entertain any comments up to 3 minutes on items that are not on the agenda.
Brian, I do have a request to read in a letter.
Okay.
All right, this is from Ursa North Star, and it goes as follows. I was told by at least one council member that there are too few officers in Yellow Springs to put a patrol car at the traffic light on Xenia Avenue in an attempt to curtail the trucks that crash the stoplights on a daily basis. And yet there seems to be a surplus of officers on mask duty. When is the Village Council of Yellow Springs going to put the necessary pressure on the police department to enforce the already too high speed limit in the village? No excuses. What steps do you plan to take to reestablish a basic right to life, human value, to protect all living beings in the village? This is a non-rhetorical question that I am asking each member of council to address. You say you are trying to protect the villagers by requiring them to stand on your designated X and by suppressing their respiratory organs with a sanitary napkin, and yet the village is saturated with a 24/7 fart fume and countless vehicles, mostly trucks, crashing red lights and speeding through the streets of the village.
Thank you, Judy. Any other citizen concerns? Okay. If not, then we have no special reports, so we're on to old business. And the first item is doing a update debrief of the budget process to date. So I don't know if Josue or Judy want to begin with just sort of what we've done to date and sort of where we're going next.
Thank you, Brian. As it's been a custom since I've joined the team that we have work sessions with council and the team. The team, that's the administration, that's me, Public Works, Chief, and others involved in the management function of the government. We have our council work sessions on the budget. And so we've had 3 very fruitful conversations around our budget. We've talked a lot about what are the assumptions that are made, how are we creating value and delivering the services, while also having an eye on the future, making infrastructure improvements, and looking to make investments long term, not just infrastructure improvements, but what are we preparing for in the future? And some of those projects have been around active transportation and sidewalk design and improvements, such as the active transportation plan that we've received an award for. So in short, we talked a lot about what is the goal. We start with what is it that we're trying to accomplish, and there's been a lot of assumptions that are made through that process. I think this gets to at the strategy. One of the questions I've got asked, and I've been asked since I joined the team, is what's going on with deficit spending? So folks see that we're spending more than what is being brought in, and there's several elements that have gone to that. One is that we had surpluses that the administration and council built these reserves over many years, and now it's intentional about making those investments. So it's not just spending down the reserves. I think that I've heard someone misinterpret a recent news article that was in the Yellow Springs News, that they felt that we were spending down to spend down, and that's not what's happening. We're not spending down just to spend down. We've had built up reserves, and we're intentional about making investments in the future. And this is the time that we're making those investments in infrastructure. So we're being intentional about where we spending the money, particularly in capital projects and other operating expenses. So there's at some point the spending over what the operating revenue brings in becomes unsustainable. And at that point, we will do some significant changes to ensure that we are not operating in a deficit budget. And what that point is, I think it's important that we talk about when do we reach that point. And for the different enterprises and the different funds, that point is different. For the general fund, we're talking about when do we reach our 90-day operating cash reserves? Because that's sort of the reserve minimum that we're working towards. We want to have a good, at least a 90-day operating cash reserves. And so when we get too close to that, we're going to pull back and make sure that we don't reach into, we're not running a deficit. Many of the enterprises, because of how they operate, they cannot operate under that similar cash flow requirement. There are a few exceptions in the capital projects, and that's requires an assessment of conditions of what equipment we are required to ensure that it's operating. And so you've heard a lot of work that's gone into the team, or that the team has put in to learn what the conditions of our infrastructure is, key infrastructure, and for us to be proactive about making improvements so that we anticipate things breaking down. So we don't wait until, say, a sewer line is collapsed and then you have no control over a repair. You just have to fork out the money, and whatever that it's going to cost you, you just have to repair it. So we're anticipating some of these infrastructure improvements, and we're being proactive. So this year we did a lot of sewer relining, and we did that in anticipation to prevent a catastrophic event down the road. So those capital reserves, we think about what are the equipment and system failures that we anticipate, and how much is that going to cost us? And do we have enough money on hand to be able to address that? And currently we do. Now we have several different systems that we have to deal with. One is power, and power is in the forefront of our thoughts because we had a planned power outage, and then we had a strong winds. And, oftentimes Johnny and I talk about this. Johnny and I talk about how many poles we have on hand, how many transformers we have on hand, how much wiring we have on hand, because we have a general idea if a strong storm comes out and knocks out X number of poles, we know what we have on hand, and we know how much time it's going to take us to make those repairs. And at what point, what is the threshold when we don't have inventory, supplies on hand, and we need to use cash to buy something quickly? Or do we need to pick up the phone and call Piqua or many of our partners who we have mutual aid agreements and say, hey, can you provide this supply because we need it right now? And then if that isn't available to us, then we need to make a significant purchase on the market. And so when we look at our capital reserves, we have an eye on what are those infrastructure components that are at risk of failing, what's the likelihood that they would fail, and what is it going to cost us, and what is the plan for repair. So when we think about those capital reserves, we took some criticism about managers in the past having a different idea of what a threshold is for those numbers. We are using data, we're using numbers, and we are anticipating as best as we can where the risks are for our infrastructure and make sure that we have the right tools and the right resource to be able to handle that. So that's how we're looking at those capital reserves. And council, I understand from Brian and the team for this year and previous years that they've been sensitive and aware and informed about right sizing those resources, so you have the right amount of input to make a decision on what you need on hand, and you use the other funds to make key investments that are going to yield a return on the investment. They're going to create efficiencies, they're going to create improvements and reliability. I think reliability is key when it comes to a lot of our key infrastructure. Reliability, that we can deliver clean water on time, every time, that we can keep the lights on 24/7 and minimize our power outages. For us, it's key that we keep our power outages, we're under 2 hours. Now, there are times that are going to be a little longer, but not a large number of customers. We try to get everyone as fast as we can, and then work on making those additional repairs where lines are damaged and we need to do a lot more infrastructure work. But we strive to keep the lights on 24/7, and the way we hope to continue to do that is by making those key infrastructure improvements, such as upgrading power poles. They might be a little taller, but they're necessary. Upgrading the power wire may be a little thicker, but it's necessary. It helps build capacity down the road. So that's the big picture started, and we've drilled down into very specific items with council, and we've continued to have those conversations in-house with Matt and Johnny and Chief Carlson. We talk about them all the time and see how we can find efficiencies.
Thanks for that, Josue. I literally, you took the words out of my mouth. I feel like you read my notes. And I appreciate that you clarified, I think, some confusion around, in fact, we've always been very conservative about keeping the necessary reserves on hand. And, talking about making those investments, I think that's really important to clarify, and we'll talk more about that. It occurs to me, Josue, that it might be good to pull out I know there's kind of like a state recommendation of, how many months or whatever you need to have on hand, and kind of face that off with what we're doing in our budget. That might be a good thing to introduce at the next meeting. Thank you. So other comments, questions, concerns from council?
Yeah, I have a comment and concern. So with regard to the general fund reserve, Josue, and it takes a long time to build up reserves because obviously governments tend to spend what they take in, right? So for example, had the levy not passed, we would basically have 1 year. If we had 1 year's worth of reserves, which is about $935,000, if we had 1 year, we'd have 1 year to convince folks that a levy would be a good thing to pass, right? So now that levy is going to be in place for what, 5 years, I think. So you have 5 years to build it back up in case it doesn't pass. So that's 90 days is like super short for general fund reserve. In my opinion, we can talk about different projects and whether that's rights, whether the capital fund, the enterprise fund balances reserves are right sized or not. But that's my point of view about general fund. It just takes a long time to build that money up. It's real easy to spend it. The other thing is I would like to ask for a robust public hearing on December 7th about the budget so the public really has a genuine, meaningful opportunity to weigh in. These cursory, second reading kind of public hearings, like let's just get it over with. No, I want people to feel like they can really make comments. So I would like enough time allocated for that.
And Laura, related to that, we are also going to dedicate a town hall to a public hearing as well, in addition to those, our 2 council meetings. And we'll be advertising that. We'll be talking about it at Wednesday's town hall, and then emphasizing that time and have it in the paper and everything. So thank you. Lisa, I saw you raise your hand.
Yes. You know, I think that so many of our conversations this evening as it relates to COVID reinforces what has been keeping me up at night about the budget cycle. And that is, you know, that we're at such an extreme time of uncertainty. In my almost 3 years on council, so not very long, but I have been in support of right-sizing our reserves. And, you know, I've seen us do that, and that has been, I felt the correct thing to do. To your point, Josue, about infrastructure, things like, you know, the sewer just collapses, and then, you know, then you're really in a pretty pickle, right? So we know that there are critical infrastructure investments that prior councils did not make, and that's part of why we are where we are now. So I believe in that. And I'm also really concerned about where we are in terms of a heightened sense of imperfect information and uncertainty. So I wish that I had something clear and brilliant to say to you tonight. And I'm just going to say I don't. But I'll tell you what I'm worried about is that things that we're investing in, like say the fiber network, like these are things that make a huge amount of difference for our community, and I believe we must move forward. Things like the sewer infrastructure, things like the electric grid. But I think for me, now more than ever, I'm starting to shift towards a more conservative point of view to say that I think we need to look one more time very, very closely of, is there something that we can be more conservative, let the reserves stay up. So, and I think I said this at the last meeting, not to drive full speed to this crash point and then be like, oh crap, now we've got to change our pattern. Is there more of a conservative medium where we say, you know, we have to press forward with these things, but for now, because of COVID, because of the economic uncertainty, the transition of, you know, so many things that are going on, we say, okay, for now, we just are not going to put that in the budget. These are the things I've been thinking about.
Thanks, Lisa. Marianne?
Yeah. So first, Josue, thank you for your explanation of why we might be spending more than we're bringing in, and that relationship to reserves that had built up and needed capital improvements. And I think that the headline in the Yellow Springs News, where it said budget burned through reserves, probably got people's attention. And I guess I'm thinking maybe along the lines that Lisa, I'm not feeling worried. So maybe that's a distinction with Lisa. But I do think that given that we know, at least it would seem that we're going to reach a point where we're going to have to not be spending, well, basically when we're spending down our reserves in the enterprise fund and in the general fund to a place where we can't be doing that anymore, that part of along with the spending down because of the improvements that we're doing, we need to be looking at what are we, the plan, the next step after that. In other words, when we're not going to wait until the end of 2021, if a reserve is going to be spent down by 2020, end of 2021, we don't want to wait until then and go, now what do we do? So I think that whoever needs to take the leadership, I guess that's you, Josue, you're it, needs to be thinking about, well, one, planning that for for the enterprise funds and for the general fund, and planning out a process so that by the time we reach that point, or maybe we won't, because maybe the process we plan out will be getting us balanced before then. But anyway, I think we need to be thinking about that issue.
Good points, Mary Ann. Kevin?
So I must admit, you know, the article that Mary Ann referred to in the newspaper, I do remember having a visceral reaction when I saw it. I mean, I didn't feel like the title. Haven't gotten to reading the article yet, but the headline, like I said, I did have a reaction to it, and I just didn't feel like that was the point of our deliberations. So, you know, the kind of things, Mary Ann, that you're suggesting that Josue does, I get the impression that he has thought about those things and is planning really in a conservative fashion. I mean, the fact that he's thought about a multi-layered contingency approach, you know, starting with what we have in-house from a inventory perspective in terms of supplies, looking at if that were to go away, worst case scenario, then we've got whatever we got in terms of reserves, or borrowing from the agreements we have with the neighborhood partners and whatnot. So I trust I've heard enough to have confidence, you know, that the right kind of thinking is in place and being applied. You know, there are some times when you have just this major catastrophe, and if it's that bad, you know, we'll have other issues to deal with, and you know, a few dollars here and there won't be the issue. But I have confidence in the team. I mean, the things I heard, I heard some good things in Josue's overview of the way he and Johnny and the rest of the team have approached things. So I feel confident. And I think we've put in the work, us as council. I think we've put in the work to express our concerns. There's been, I think, a lot of input, a lot of back and forth. The one thing about the article that's been suggested is that it did get people's attention. And so I suspect with the budget reviews and the town halls that we'll have to discuss the budget, won't be done in a vacuum, because folks should be excited about getting involved and getting their voices heard. So I feel confident that we're moving in the right direction, and I trust that the team is doing the right thing, and I just look forward to us moving forward with next steps.
Thanks, Kevin. All right, I'm going to say a few things because I actually almost agree with everything I've heard, and I think it indicates to me that we're all on pretty similar pages in many ways. First of all, let's commit to December 2nd being the town hall that focuses on budget. That will give us time to prepare some good documents, break it down so that people can absorb it. And I'll definitely work with Matt and Josue, and if another council member would like to do that as well, you can indicate that to Judy. The second thing is I feel strongly we have to invest in our future. And if we just sit and do nothing, we're just going to see reserves deplete. And kind of connected to that, you know, we've talked about things like broadband, big winner, big attractor. It's going to bring in people that want to work here because everyone's going to be working from home for the most part, and a lot of opportunities there. I also agree with the ideas that we got to be paying attention and seeing if we're getting the returns on our investments. And I think we've always done that. And, you know, I've never had a cursory rubber stamp approval of a budget since I've been on council. In fact, we've done more and more work every year. And this year we're having extra meetings. So that has never happened. It's not going to happen this year for sure. And then the third thing is it really reminds me of one example of an opportunity to generate revenue that I've now talked about for over 2 years, which is the paid parking. And so it's been pushed off, but I'm going to be advocating for this very strongly in this next year. I think there are other revenue opportunities as well, but we need to take advantage of our assets. And that's the kind of thing that can bring in an extra $100,000 a year. Lodging tax was a big success. People were saying, oh, you're not going to get more than 40,000. In a good year, we hit 55,000. So these are the kinds of things we can do in addition to fixing all the infrastructure and everything else we need to do to keep this village resilient and vital. So any other questions and comments? And keep in mind, we've got at least 3 more meetings to drill down on all of this.
Brian, I just want to just comment on what you just shared about, for example, paid parking, because it has sort of fallen off the wayside. But that's, I think, an excellent point. I think the one side of the coin is, diligence with respect to the budgeting and spending and not overspending. But the other side of that coin is taking advantage of available low-hanging fruit, if you will, with respect to revenue opportunities. So I would submit, that we can't be on both sides of the table. There's a balance. There's a middle ground where we are doing the work, to control spending and be responsible, but we have to seriously consider available additional revenue opportunities as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do want to be mindful of time, but if there are any other questions or comments.
I have 2 comments. One, I'm going to be on the opposite side of your paid parking debate, because I have seen it hurt downtowns, the business community, because people don't like it. They don't like the hassle. They don't want to mess with money when they just want to park, and whether it's locals just running into Tom's or whatever. So that's one comment. I've got experience with it, and I'm not in favor of it. But on the budget, I do, Josue, and I've asked you by email to please, and the school board, I watched their meeting, and this slide really stuck out in my memory, is a slide that shows total compensation increase suggested for the 2021 budget. And as you know, a big piece of total compensation is the health insurance. So if we stick with the same kind of plan, what's our increase for the insurance going to look like for all the employees? If we go to a different type of plan, what's the increase going to look like? And there are some good plan options out there. So total compensation, including the COLA and any other increases proposed. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, everyone. I've got your feedback. We're gonna take what you've provided, and we'll continue to work on all the items that you've raised issues with. And I just want to reassure you that we have worked on a lot of these things that you've brought up, particularly looking at when we were going to hit that minimum reserve balance, because that one's not new of this year. We talked about it last year, and I understand it was talked about in the previous year. So that number we knew was coming up in 2021. So it's not a surprise by what I understand. But that doesn't mean that we aren't necessarily doing something to prolong that or extend our timeline in 2 ways. One is, with Matt, we actually had a conversation today. Matt and Johnny, myself, we were talking about our minimum reserves, and we made some adjustments that you're going to see in the next draft version, where we've cut some of our costs, and that allows us to extend our timeline a little bit. But we're also looking at what is the difference in service levels that are driving that, the deficit, if you will, for lack of a better word. How much of that is capital reserves and what improvements could be financed through operations? So essentially, how do we close the gap? How do we get to a balanced budget? And so we started looking at those service levels, and we've identified what are the minimum service requirements in terms of, what is it that we are expected to deliver and what is that going to cost? The essentials. And we've got a pretty good idea what that number is, and what actions need to be taken to make sure that we get back to a balanced budget. And that's a conversation about values that would come up in the conversation down the road. And that needs to be part of the conversation now. Matt proposed the tough questions earlier today. Like, if you had to make that cut today, where do you focus your value on? And so just want to reassure you that we are thinking about those things, and we are looking at all the options. And like Kevin said, it is a multi-layer approach. If we look at a couple scenarios as well, we've done some scenario planning within the organization. What if we did less road surface and did more sidewalk? What if we did, making trade-offs? So we are looking at those scenarios. And Mary Ann, yes, it becomes my responsibility. I'm the one who has to work the numbers, and we work them until we get something that is representative of all of our values and our interests and our commitments to our residents.
All right, thanks for that, Josue. And so I think it's a good time to wrap up this conversation. December 2nd, we will be focusing on this, as well as at our meetings on December 7th and December 21st. On our meaningful actions related to anti-racism, there is a detailed report in the commissions and boards section about the Justice System Collaborative Committee and how things are moving. I'll just highlight 4 things. First of all, related to diversity and implicit bias training, Mayor Pam and all council members are now included in the system. And so we have some trainings that we should be completing. We also are able to include interested citizens. So I know that Louise Smith and Bomani have indicated that they want to be signed up. So if there are others that would like to see what that training looks like, they can certainly participate. And that is all included in our public pool that provides a variety of training and other services, public employee pool. And a second thing I want to highlight is Angela Allen has indicated to me that the community sit-downs are ready to go. She's been following up with people and is ready to get those scheduled. So if she has reached out to you, please get those moving. This is a very important component to that relationship building between our peace officers and our community. Third thing I want to mention is that our next meeting, which will be it will be, I'm spacing, December.
It's on the 24th.
No, I think it's December 1st because it's always the Tuesday before council. So it should be December 1st. And on December 1st, we are going to focus on the diversity hiring practices, and that includes our vendor selection and looking more at that. I know that Kevin and Josue have done some work on that, and we're going to do a deep dive at that meeting. And then the second thing is we're going to focus more on those vendors and other folks having anti-racism commitments and other things that confirm that they support our village values. And that's something that I know Brianne has had a heads up about. It also relates to making sure we've got everything on the books related to hate crimes that we can enforce. And then the last thing I'll mention is, we're going to also start doing a deeper dive on the systemic aspects in general. So housing has come up, especially related to the lack of Section 8 housing in town. We want to see what we can do about that. We're going to look at public health issues. We're going to look at some of those other things. And I am going to be part of a brainstorming team that's going to start to set some of that up because this anti-racism is a public health crisis initiative. Our focus is not just about the criminal justice system. It's about all aspects of the system. So with that, we're going to shift to the manager's report.
All right, thank you, Brian. I've included some information about the COVID-19 status and the pandemic. We're at level 3, and I think we've discussed that in enough detail today. Mentioned earlier, we continue to provide the hand sanitizer stations, refilling those, and we're going. We expect to use up a bit more of our supplies in this season because now all businesses are required to have hand sanitizer inside the business. So any business that needs hand sanitizer, we will make some of ours available. So I think that that's going to utilize our solution much faster, and we'll review as necessary. And if we need to make another large purchase, we will. We also open, as we have been from the beginning of the pandemic, to leverage our purchasing power and buy a large quantity of hand sanitizer and have businesses and other organizations get it from us, and we'll find a way to share the cost. But I think that there's an opportunity there, and being able to leveraging our purchasing power. So that's still an option at the table, and we made that offer initially, and we didn't have a whole lot of takers. But we'll continue to explore that option. We talked about the Wi-Fi project. We've decided to install the switch here at the John Bryan Center. So that's a change in the operation. I think it's worth council knowing that the John Bryan Center will have the switch and the controllers for the public Wi-Fi. So it is going to be our fiber, and the switch will be here. So I think that there's a value and a lot to be said about a secure facility such as our being the holder of that equipment and managing the equipment. It does mean a little more extra electricity use in the building, so we'll figure out how that what that impact will be and how to manage that. We submitted a request for support from Greene County for the Wi-Fi project and other activities, and we received a positive response. So we'll be following up with the county on the municipal broadband and the Wi-Fi project in their next commission municipal grants program that they will be launching in the near future. We had a meeting on Vernay, and I've included the updates on my report. In short, we are still waiting for additional measures on the 3D particle tracking model. The USCPA team have reviewed the model, but they still need additional information from Vernay and TRC to make definitive conclusions about the movement of the contaminants in the 3D model, and for them to validate the model. So we're working through that. Our next meeting is scheduled for December 17th. We did receive an update on the estimated statement of basis and the community engagement. Because we have not received that 3D particular model data, we've extended the timeline, and it's still within the period that we had initially proposed, which was that Q1 and the first quarter, second quarter of 2021. We have received the updated soil excavation removal proposal. So as initially reported, the Vernay and the TRC team had proposed expanding their excavation zones. If you recall, their initial proposal had a very constrained area that they were going to excavate. We asked for additional soil sampling to ensure that that area was in fact the area that to be excavated, and that the extended area was not going to be above the CSAT level of concentration that they were aiming for. Well, they did the soil testing, and as a result of the soil test, they've had to expand their region. So we received the full proposal, and I will make those files available. The team here is looking at creating a repository that's available to more individuals so they can have access to those reports. So we're going to be leveraging our SharePoint for that, and we'll create a public SharePoint site as we did for the COVID response team. That issue came up because with Tom, who's one of the environmental commission subcommittee members, he wanted access to these files, and they're really large to email. So we couldn't easily get it to him. So we're creating that repository. So that will be available for other council members too. I know that in the past has been an issue getting them in the packet because it would make your packet really long. And we've had issues emailing a large council packet. Administrative updates, we've, Brian, thank you for reporting on the platform. So all the council members are added, so you should have received your login credentials and your task assignments. And before you complain to me about the task assignment, they weren't necessarily my task assignment, my course assignment. There were things that everyone in the organization is looking at. So I think it's a good for you to know what our team is being trained on, particularly our peace officers. So you have access to that, and you can see what content is in there. So I welcome feedback on those items. The police report is in there. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer any questions on that police report. Likewise, on the public works report, I will point out one particular item because it's sensitive to our work, and that is in the previous council meeting, I believe I reported on doing an assessment of our water wells out of the water treatment facility. And we found a damaged water well. So well number 2 is damaged. I've included a picture of it. And also I included a link to a video. So if you're interested in looking at a high quality video of that inside of that well, I've provided that to you. So short, we discovered a damaged sidewall to the well, and that requires urgent repairs to prevent any further erosion and collapse of that well. So we'll be re-sleeving that with a 12-inch pipe to maintain the integrity and the functionality of the well. Or sludge press.
Josue,
Yes?
why don't you remind council and citizens of how many wells we have and how we use them in terms of, letting alternating or whatever it is?
Yes, I appreciate that. And I've got Johnny on the line. So Johnny, if I miss anything, please feel free to jump in. We've got 6 wells. We switch between wells so that we're not drawing off from one. And I have the numbers on the flow. We're pulling overall around 350,000 gallons per day, and that's about to meet the demand of our water demand in our community. And we alternate between 2 wells at a time to make up that water, or to pull up that to draw that water. Johnny, did I miss anything?
Let me just say that we do have 6 wells. 4 of them are active, 2 of them are testing wells. The one that has been found to have holes in the sidewall is our main producing well. It's got the shallowest water, so it doesn't see a drop in water in time to rebuild it up. So this well was actually installed in like 1963, and the casing is just fully deteriorated. But we do alternate between all 4 wells, and it can pump up to about 750 gallons a minute.
Thank you.
Thank you, Johnny. We have the sludge machine is already on site and it's functioning. Just the team has already pressed and removed 130,000 gallons of biosolid. So if anyone is interested in seeing what that looks like, you're welcome to drive by. It's out there in the concrete pad. The rest is in the report. I'm sorry, I have one more. I think that it's an important one. The surface aeration system that we're working to install at Ellis Pond. As you know, that most of the pond is covered in what the experts are calling floating filamentous algae. So a lot of green stuff and algae that's just overgrown and taken over the the pond. So we're installing a surface aeration system to deal with that as one of the intervention measures. Another one is an environmentally safe chemical solution that will be added to the pond. All right, I'm very grateful for the levy. I've included my message there on the passing of the levy. We've on the power outage, we've had a very successful power outage. The DP&L crew actually took advantage of the plant outage and did additional work. There were additional items that needed to be addressed, and we're glad that they were addressed because it helps with the resiliency of our electrical grid. And that concludes my manager's report. I have a couple items that I have included that is separate from the manager's report. One is I've provided a memo on the dividends that have been provided by the Bureau of Workers' Compensation. This is something that the Governor DeWine did across the state for public employers and private employers. So employers the state will have a $5 billion distribution in the workers' compensation returns that the state have been able to generate. So we received ours. We received a total of 124,000, and with additional credits. And I understand that we expect a little bit more to be returned to us. Included in the last distribution, the last check, there was a note. There's a letter that I've also included with council that included a message from Governor DeWine, and they're recommending that we use part of the dividends to invest in our greatest assets, our employees. And so we provided a memo that is in line with what the Governor DeWine has recommended and what other jurisdictions has recommended. Our most closest municipality who has acted on it is Greene County. They passed a one-time incentive/bonus for employees using the dividends. So we've included in that report. So I would love to hear feedback from the council, whether that's an action now or at a later meeting. The other one that I would like council's input on is in Laura and the written response that she referenced earlier today. She requested access to medical health insurance. And yes, I've checked with our provider and that is possible. However, it requires a policy change and that can only be done by council. So if council would like to address that, then we will need a policy change from council. And I've discussed the matter with our village solicitor on this, and there are some suggestions of what that council action will look like. Mentioned earlier, the PBS is doing a story on the Willing Gaunt and the Widows Sugar and Flour distribution. So we've got those. We're scheduling those interviews and drive-alongs with the team. This will be done in a COVID safer and safe environment where none of those teams that will be following us would drive with us. They would have to follow in their own car, and they would have to practice physical distancing and mask and whatnot. So we will be engaging that, but we'll be doing it in the safest manner possible. Finally, the health insurance review, there's also a budget request item. Our schedule for open enrollment and health review doesn't happen or doesn't coincide with our budget adoption. So the schedule for renewal for us doesn't happen until April, May from contract. So we don't go out to market and ask for a product or ask for a premium update until January, and we don't get our quote back until March. For execution in April and May. So the timing of it unfortunately doesn't work for us to be able to incorporate some actual numbers or make changes to our health insurance programs and offerings as part of the budget process. So what we have done to ensure that we are budgeting properly is ask for the broker, what are the premium changes that they're seeing in the market. So they're able to provide information what the other customers that are on a different cycle from ours, what are the premium increases that they're seeing. We saw a significant premium increase last year, and we had to make changes to our offering so that we could meet the additional financial demand. So if we were to continue with our health premium as we had it, the previous year to the current one that we have, we were looking at an increase in excess of 9%. So we made some adjustments to our health plan by increasing the deductible, the annual deductible limit. It made additional changes so that we could reduce or minimize our premium, the cost of our healthcare premiums. For next year, we don't know what the market is going to do, but what we're hearing from our brokers is that we can expect a high single-digit premium increase, and we're hoping to go to the market much earlier this renewal season so that we have more time to weigh all of our options.
Okay, so it sounds like there are two things we need to, I guess, give you a response to. The policy change related to Laura's request, it seems like we need more information to make a decision on that. So I don't think we can do that tonight if someone disagrees with me. And then in terms of using the dividend return in the way that it is intended, I strongly support a one-time bonus. And I know how hard everyone's worked and how much the pandemic's affected everyone. So if we can do something like that to help our village team members, I assume we all agree on that. But if anyone has challenges to either of those, speak now. Okay, thank you. You guys are amazing. And then is there anything else, Josue, that you needed a response on?
On the dividend, we can come back with a resolution, and Brian, if we could discuss that in our agenda planning and the other process we have. Likewise, for the policy change, we could discuss that in agenda planning, and for me is getting the feedback from you that this is something that council is interested in, so that Brianne and I can get to work on the specific policy change and the parameters of that change.
Okay. Well, I don't know that most of us know enough about the request or the policy change to tell you if we're interested. So, okay. Let's go from there. Okay, so let's move on to our last item, board and commission reports. Any council members? I believe, Lisa, you wanted to highlight some things?
I do. First, I want to congratulate again the collaboration of the People's Banner Project, Chef Anguilla from the hardware store, and the Baldwin family for their collaboration that created that wonderful installation of banners that's been on the side of the hardware store for a period of time. For the Art and Culture Commission, this really exemplified how the community could come together and create a wonderful project through cooperation and collaboration. So the VITA Award is there right now. I also want to mention something that we're doing new in Art and Culture Commission in terms of membership. Michael Caselli, who many of you know as an incredibly innovative, talented artist and also a member of the staff at Antioch College, came to us to tell us about some really exciting, huge, wonderful ideas of the college regarding art. And Brian, who's with me on Art and Culture, met with Michael, and we've invited Michael to sit on the Art and Culture Commission as sort of a town gown liaison for art and culture to the college. So the idea there is that we would have a really good line of sight into initiatives that are going on both at the college and in the village, and increase our impact of all forms of public art on the village values and on the values of the college. So I just wanted to mention that this evening. Thanks.
Thanks, Lisa. And I've just got to say, I mean, the Arts and Culture Commission is doing some amazing stuff right now, and so important, and so in line with forwarding our village values. Thanks a lot. to all of you guys. Any other highlights from boards and commissions? Okay, if not, future agenda items. So we're going to make sure to have plenty of time at the December 7th meeting for the budget. So I think being mindful of that, we want to limit the number of other items on our agenda. Is there anything else?
Yeah, Brian, it's been a while, but I believe you remember back in September, Homie reached out to us to talk about putting together a inclusive and resilient Yellow Springs initiative.
Yeah.
We've had several meetings, but I did suggest at our last meeting last week that that you had asked that we do an update at some point, and so we've are asking that on December 21st. If we could have space on the agenda. I don't know if I'll do that update or if one of the other team members will. But you know, there's a lot of energy and momentum going there, and so we look forward to not presenting a finished product by any means, but just doing an update as we've been asked to do.
Excellent. Yeah, that'll be great to hear, because I did give that group, your group, a shout out when I spoke on Saturday. So it's great work and very important. Thanks. Anything else?
Thank you.
I don't know if this is for 2020, but I just want to keep it in people's mind that the Compassionate Justice Group here in the village would very much support a resolution to end cash bail. Now, it's not something we can do, but it's something we can encourage and support. And the Chief Justice of Ohio also is advocating for reforms in that area as well. So I'll be bringing that, not sure when, but maybe by early 2021. Thank you.
Great, great. Anything else? Okay. If not, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Okay. All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And everyone have a safe Thanksgiving. Be with your family, only with your family, and take care. See
Good
ya.
night.
Night.
Good night.
Good night.